Hey guys, today I'm going to show you guys my class setups and my settings that I think all players in MW should be using, and if you're not using, you are putting yourself at a significant disadvantage. But before that, I'm just giving you guys a recap of my stats after Season 2 and somewhat of a Damascus grind. I've gone pretty much halfway through Damascus, but it's still a long grind ahead. Okay, so to start off, I am playing on a controller. I have the Scuff Vantage 2, and I do play with a control freak on my right analog stick. However, these settings will apply to you if you are on Xbox or some other PS4 controller. And if you are on PC, I do have some suggestions that you can consider for your settings. So the first thing I think you should change if you haven't already is you want to be playing on flipped. You don't want to be aiming and shooting with the triggers on the back because there's a delay between each press. And if you play with flipped, it's going to change it to the L1 and R1, which is a button instead of a trigger. And it's going to allow you to shoot semi-automatics more quickly and just be able to aim and shoot a lot faster. Now I do play default tactical because I'm an OG COD player, which means that I crouch and prone with my right analog stick and I melee with circle, or I believe it's B on Xbox. My sensitivity is 6.6. I get a lot of questions about what's the best sensitivity. I think the sweet spot is somewhere around 4 to 8. Anything less or more than that is just too much or too little. For my ADS sensitivity, I have not changed this for this game. I used to change it for my snipers, but in this game, since you have auto aim for your snipers, you don't really need to change this. My aim response curve, I use dynamic. So ever since the beta, I've been using dynamic, and I'm not too sure there's a difference between standard and dynamic, but I've been using it ever since, and a lot of pro players also use it, so I kept it. Controller vibration, I would recommend turning it off. It can kind of throw you off sometimes and mess up your aim. For aim assist, I keep it on standard. I don't change it to the other presets. Now, you can't mount in competitive play. However, if you are going for camos, I think double tap ADS is probably the most efficient way to use it. And you also want to disable your depleted ammo weapon switch. You don't want to be in the middle of a gunfight and pull your knife out by accident. Now, this is probably the most important thing that I recommend anyone to change to keep ahead of the meta right now, which is slide canceling. And I'll show you guys gameplay of how to effectively slide cancel. But you want to change your slide behavior to tap instead of hold, and I'll explain why in the gameplay. Now in general, your brightness, you can choose whatever you want it. I just keep mine on the barely visible option. And this is also an important thing for safe area. You want to make it as small as you can to ensure that the HUD is the closest that it can be to your eyes. So whether you want to look to the top left to see your map or the bottom right to see your ammo. Film grain, I would recommend putting on 0. And your world motion blur, I'll also disable. Now in the update, they actually allowed you to now change your map from a round or to a square. I'm using a square because on previous CODs it was a square. For audio mix, I am using boost high. I'm not too sure what the best one is, but in terms of when I was testing for myself, and I have the Astro A40s, boost high sounded the best. And I adjusted my master music, dialogue, and effects to be 50, 33, 75, 75. And then I further adjusted these settings on my mix amp as well as on my PSN party chat because I want to be able to hear my teammates, but also to make sure that they're not too loud to where I can't hear any footsteps. And that's about all the settings that I would recommend you guys changing. Now I'm going to show you guys gameplay. You have some other tips that you guys should be doing in your game to play the best that you can. Okay, in this first clip, I'm going to show you guys how to slide cancel if you don't already know. So this is considered a complete slide, which means that you go the full distance of a normal slide. However, if you actually press R3 in the middle of your slide, you can actually stop in the middle of it, which you want to do this because it makes your character model look like a blur and a lot harder for the enemies to shoot at. The second thing you can do in this game is you can actually do double jumps in this game. So this is the typical jump shot that we're all familiar with. However, in this game you can actually jump at the end of your jump shot to gain more distance and also a little bit more accuracy in doing so. Okay, so another thing that I don't see a lot of people utilize is shot punching or just simply meleeing more often. Now, it's not as effective as it used to be in previous games, such as Black Ops 4, however, it is still very viable in close quarters gunfights, and especially if you have the jump on the enemy. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys gameplay of how to utilize all three of these things effectively. I'm going to do my best impression of the SMG members on FaZe, however, obviously I'm not as talented as they are, but you guys can kind of get the gist of what I was trying to explain to you guys. A lot of people ask me what I use on my MP5 and N4 class. And I would say it's pretty standard across the board in terms of what other pros use. I like to mirror my class setups off of the pros because there's restrictions when you play competitive play. So you can't use certain things such as a 725, and you want to kind of train yourself to use those same class setups every day so get used to them. So for the MP5, I use the Merc grip, and then I use 10mm rounds, stipple grip, sleight of hand, and F-Tac collapsible. The F-Tech capsule is probably the most important thing because it allows your MP5 to zoom out instead of being so zoomed in. For my N4 class, I am using a compensator for my muzzle, and then for my barrel I have on the Grenadier. For my grip I'm using Commando, and I have on rubberized grip and also no stock. So one more thing you guys might realize about the gameplay is that it's a lot higher quality than my previous videos. This is because it's recorded directly from Elgato instead of recording it through PSN and then later bringing it to my computer. As for any updates on my channel, I just plan on uploading a lot more videos. I have clips saved up over time, and I'm going to look through them and try to find some good gameplay. And also I'm going to try in the future to record every time that I do play so that I can get a lot more clips for you guys. As for the world record video, I'm getting a lot of comments talking about how it's not the current record anymore, and you guys have to understand that when I was posting that video, when I was searching the internet, the highest I could find was 37, which means that I tied the record. However, I had a better stat line than that person, which is why I just said I had the world record. Alright guys, so that's about all I have. If you guys have any more questions, you guys can leave it in the comments down below and I'll for sure answer them. Thank you guys for the continued support recently. And for the rest of the gameplay, I'm going to show you guys some extra clips that I have from that warm up and private match. Thank you guys for watching, and see you guys in the next video.
Ready to fire. Personal radar drone standing by. UAV ready for deployment. Personal radar drone standing by. UAV ready for deployment.